We're gonna use the SimEarth simulator or line game. We're gonna choose one planet, start modifying until we have a sustainable civilization. For this experiment, we're gonna have access to all the information about CO2 gases, oxygen, dust particles in the air, and atmospheric pressure. Our group decided to choose Mars as our planet, and we start adding ice meteors, CO2 and oxygen generators to have like living atmosphere. The main purpose of the experiment is to see the effect that civilization is gonna cause to atmospheric pressure. We think that the civilization is gonna cause an increase of CO2 and those particles in the air, and also it's gonna cause a decrease of the oxygen gases they're gonna have in the atmosphere.
So to do this experiment, open up a blank Mars template and add in 50 ice meteors. Once that is done, add in 50 N2 generators, 50 oxygenators, and 50 CO2 generators, and then 10 vaporators. Wait 100 years to come back, do the same thing again with all those generators, and also add in 8 biome factories to the continents. Also add in 5 or 6 prokaryotes or eukaryotes to the ocean. Wait 100 years, come back, replace any biome factories, and add in 2 of every life source available except humans. Wait another 100 years, pause the game, and add in 20 human tribes. From this point on, I recommend keeping it on fast, because for every 200 years, you're going to pause the game and take a screenshot of the atmospheric composition. To look at this, you're going to go to the top bar, go to Window, Map, double-click on the thermometer at the bottom, and you'll just take a screenshot of that.
The data collected in our experiment is represented in 2 forms. The first one being a table titled Atmospheric Composition of Mars, in which the 3 variables, oxygen, carbon dioxide, and dust particles, are represented in percentage form, while time elapsed is in years. Data collection for this experiment began at year 300.1 and ended at year 1300.1. Our second figure is a line graph titled Atmospheric Composition over Time in Mars, in which the 3 variables, oxygen, carbon dioxide, and dust particles, are represented in a line graph in order to determine how these variables change in relation to each other as well as to time. We also included the civilization being added to the line graph so we can see how this impacts the percent composition of the specific substance in the atmosphere. Time in years is on the x-intercept, while percent composition in atmosphere is on the y-axis in percentage. Although our data does not show an increase in carbon dioxide emissions, it does show that there is an imbalance between the 3 variables being tested.
Our data does in fact support most of our hypothesis, which said that if we add civilizations of humans, it will cause some misbalance to the planet in forms of lowered rates of oxygen, higher rates of CO2, and more dust particles. The data that we obtained does in fact prove that our rates of oxygen in the atmosphere in fact had lowered, but surprisingly enough, CO2 had decreased from adding in tribes of humans. As for the dust particles, we predicted in our hypothesis that there would be more of them, and as shown in our data, there was. I don't see anything wrong with the hypothesis or see anything that I really would want to change, so I suggest that we could change it so that we could test it over a longer period of time. So we could do this by simply recording more data, but over a longer period of time.